Howdy folks, welcome back to another Out of Spec Renew video. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm actually going to go through and kind of answer some of the most frequently asked questions that I get in the comments section. I also put a post up on Twitter to see if anybody had any questions there. So I've kind of compiled some of the most popular questions that I get, and I'm going to go through and answer them for you. So, one of the most common questions that I usually get in the comments section regarding the repairs that I do is people want to know what my shop is and where I'm located. My shop is called Wattworks, and I'm located in Portland, Oregon. I'm basically a one-man show, so it's a pretty small-time shop. I do all the work here myself, and everything that you see in the videos are just various different customer cars that come into the shop for repairs, or some of the out-of-spec related projects. The next question on the list here is one of the most common questions that I get, and I've actually kind of thought about maybe making a whole video about this. The problem is that there's not really a one-size-fits-all answer, and that is, what does it cost to repair or replace the battery in an EV, and are cell or module swaps feasible? And the answer to those two questions really is, it depends. There's not really any one-size-fits-all answer to that question, and the pricing can range, anywhere from, say at the low end, maybe $1,000 for a fairly low-level repair. In almost every situation, the majority of the cost is going to be the labor, not so much the parts. But then at the high end, if it's a high-demand battery pack that's hard to find, you might be up into the $10,000 or $12,000 neighborhood to source a used pack and install. As far as sourcing new packs, that's typically outside of my typical business model for my shop here. There just aren't very many new pack options that make economic sense for me to be able to swap into customer cars. I can get them, but the economics of it don't really make sense. Say, for example, if you wanted to get a new battery for, your Tesla, it's actually more expensive for me to install that pack as a new pack than it would to just have Tesla do it. And that's kind of just because of the way that Tesla does their parts pricing and stuff. Other cars, it kind of varies. There's not really very many aftermarket battery options available, which is another question that I get pretty commonly, is what aftermarket pack options are there? Really, the only aftermarket pack options that have been relatively widely installed, at least here in the US, are actually for Nissan Leafs. There's a number of Chinese companies that build batteries for the Leaf. Some of the ones that I've personally seen, the quality on them is a little bit questionable as far as the way that they're built. Usually they're built in an existing Nissan Leaf battery case, just with newer modules and stuff swapped in, and sometimes the wiring and stuff is not really up to the level of quality that I would like to see. There are some other aftermarket packs out there that I've seen as well. I've seen aftermarket packs for BMW i3, Volkswagen e-Golf, both, again, Chinese companies that I haven't really seen a lot of independent info from. I've seen lots of posts from these companies that build the packs, but there's not a lot of independent verified installations, particularly in here in North America. So that's kind of what that comes down to. As far as cell or module swapping, that's another question that it really depends on the car. A lot of the older EVs on the market, it's a little bit more feasible to do cell or module swaps, say like a Nissan Leaf or a Mitsubishi i-MiEV or something like that. It can be possible to swap cells or modules. The key thing when doing any kind of cell or module swapping is you want to try and get the closest possible match. And even then, you're almost never going to have a perfect match. And part of that reasoning comes down to why with other cars it's not so possible. So basically with any Teslas, it's extremely difficult to be able to pair modules in terms of doing swapping, and it just makes it not really feasible to do on a repeatable level. Trying to source a module that's going to be a close enough match that it's not going to cause problems later down the road be like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Unless you have hundreds or thousands of modules to pull from to try and source the right match for the pack that you're working on, it makes it extremely difficult. Tesla actually has a history of doing remanufactured packs in-house that used module swapping, and those packs don't have a good track history in terms of longevity. So it kind of seems like it's more of a get it past the end of the warranty and then we don't really care at that point. And that logic applies to a lot of warranty level repairs for all sorts of different manufacturers. So the next question on the list here that we've got is, where did I receive my training to work on these cars? And the answer to that is, I don't have any formal training. When I first started doing the kind of work that I was doing on these cars, whether that be Teslas or Nissan Leafs, or some of the less common cars like Toyota RAV4 EV and that kind of thing, there weren't really very many training programs available for electric vehicle repairs. There were, of course, OEM level or dealership level training programs for OEM or dealer level techs, but there wasn't really very many programs for third-party repair people. I've been in the industry doing these types of repairs and work for probably going on at least 7 or 8 years now, and basically it's all just been learning on the job. I've always worked on my own cars, even going back to when I was a teenager, working on internal combustion engine vehicles. I got really interested in electric vehicles probably about midway through high school, and I really, really wanted to do an electric conversion on a car, which ended up not really being within the budget of what I could do. But what I did do was I actually did a conversion on a motorcycle for my high school senior project, and that was what kind of sparked everything to bring me to where I am now. I actually used to work for a company in the San Diego area called QC Charge. When I first started there, it was mostly charging equipment related stuff that we did, but we also did DC fast charging kits for the Toyota RAV4 EV, Mercedes B-Class Electric, and the Tesla Roadster. So that was kind of where I got my start really working on EVs, was doing the DC fast charging installations on those cars. And then we started getting a lot of requests from customers asking if we could fix their RAV4 EVs and Mercedes, and we started doing repairs on those cars, especially during the pandemic when our manufacturing side of the business got shut down. I left QC Charge almost 2 years ago now, and I moved up here to start my own shop. And so I've been doing everything here independently. I've sort of branched out and started doing repairs on more other vehicles. Used to be that I was a bit more specialized and really just working on those few vehicles that we had a lot of experience with, like the RAV4, B-Class, Model S, and a few Leaf things. I still work on a lot of those vehicles, but I've sort of branched out and started doing repairs on other vehicles as well, and doing less related or relevant repairs than what I was doing before. But a lot of the knowledge translates through to the other cars. There's differences, here and there with how different cars are put together and constructed, but the core basics are really the same. So another topic that comes up that a lot of people have concerns about with their electric vehicles is what regular maintenance should they be doing? And that's a pretty common question that I get, and that's one where it really kind of depends on the car. But I would say that for most any EV, you want to be doing regular gearbox fluid changes. Not all manufacturers specify an interval to change it. Famously, Tesla actually used to specify service intervals for the gearbox fluid, and they've actually revised their service guidelines to eliminate those service intervals. And I think a lot of that is because they just don't want to be doing that work at the service center level. They're already busy enough doing repair stuff, and they don't want to be replacing people's gearbox oil in cars all the time, especially with as many cars as there are on the road. I would say, generally speaking, for most cars, you're going to want to do that kind of maintenance in the 50 to 100,000 mile neighborhood. Certain cars are more prone to gearbox-related issues than others. So Kia Niro, Hyundai Kona, the Tesla large drive unit, and other ones come to mind where you want to be doing more regular fluid changes in order to keep any kind of metallic particulate out of the gearbox and prevent gear and bearing wear. So the next question that I get a lot is, where do I get my repair information from? And there's a few different sources that I get repair information from. When it comes to Tesla stuff, Tesla actually publishes all of their repair-related information online for the most part. So you can gain access to all of the service manuals, the service procedures. All of that stuff is all available online at Tesla's service site, service.tesla.com. And there's additional information that you can gain access to using a Toolbox subscription. So with the Toolbox subscription, you can look up specific articles related to different types of alerts to give you a better idea of what the cause of those alerts might be. With the Toolbox subscription, you also get access to theory of operation documentation and that kind of thing as well. When it comes to other vehicles, a lot of the service information that I get comes from a service subscription that I use from a company called AllData. They basically compile service information from different manufacturers, and then they publish it all in one place, available for a subscription fee. So with that subscription fee, I can access service information for most vehicles that are sold in North America. There's a few of them where some of the service information isn't quite as available, but for the most part, I can get a lot of the info that I want through AllData. There's also other service information that you can gain access to other places online. A lot of the time, forums are pretty valuable places to look for service info, common issues, repairs for some of those common types of issues that might be outside of the manufacturer recommended repairs. But sometimes there's other repair methods that you can pursue to do those things. And that really goes for any EV. As far as, Tesla, if you've got a battery-related issue or a drive unit-related issue, their solution is always just remove and replace the whole component assembly, whereas a lot of the time, issues can be repaired. And it's really just a matter of being able to find the correct knowledge resources, and then you can troubleshoot, find the problem, and fix it. So another question that I get a lot is, why aren't there more EV repair shops? Where can I find one near me? And do I plan to expand and open more shops or offer a franchise model? I'll start with the end part of that. I don't really have any plans to expand or offer any kind of franchising or do training or anything like that. That's outside of my business model and kind of a bit over my head as far as the kind of level of things that I want to get into. I'm a pretty small operation. I don't really want to scale up to a point where it becomes much more difficult for me to manage, especially doing the videos here on Renew and stuff. It really helps to kind of keep things smaller, and that way I can keep things more manageable and have time to actually be able to do the other things that I want to do. As far as why aren't there more EV shops and where can you find one, there might be more than you might expect. There's a lot of new shops out there opening up that are getting into doing EV repairs. A lot of existing shops that work on regular internal combustion engine vehicles are interested in starting to get into EV repairs. Obviously, that's something that kind of varies from one shop to another. A lot of them want nothing to do with working on EVs, and some of them are interested in starting to do that kind of work. As far as how you can find a shop, really the best place to kind of try and find a shop is just search online. See what kind of repair options you might be able to find just by doing a Google search. If you have any local forums, Facebook groups for your particular car or just EVs in general, you might be able to ask around in some of those places and see if anybody else has experience with any local shops doing work on electric vehicles. And really that's kind of the best way to get started trying to find a shop. There are shops all over the country, but they're certainly not as common as I think they should be. And it's a problem that's been super common in this industry, is that there's just not really enough repair options out there for people, but there are starting to be more and more options out there becoming available. So another question on the list is, what type of diagnostic equipment do I use and what vehicles does it work on? You may have seen in a lot of videos I use this diagnostic tablet right here. This is actually an Autel MS909, specifically with the EV add-on package. That can be added on to any MS909 or MS Ultra. Probably some of the other Autel tools can do, I'm sure, some of just the regular diagnostic basic stuff. But the EV add-on package specifically allows you to plug into independent components for EVs. Specifically, battery packs is one of the big ones. It actually has an extra box that I can plug into, and I can connect directly to a battery to do pack-level diagnostics. There's also some extra testing procedures and stuff that you can do. But this tool can easily read diagnostic trouble codes. It can do different test procedures. You can clear codes. You can do all that sort of thing. It works on pretty much any legacy manufacturer vehicle. It also works for Teslas as well. Has a little bit more limited capabilities on Teslas compared to using Tesla's in-house diagnostic software, which is called Toolbox 3. But it can do a lot of those jobs without any real difficulty. What it can't connect to, as far as I know, is it's got no support for Rivian, Lucid, or Fisker. Which Fisker is sort of a particular problem child when it comes to diagnostic availability, as is Lucid for that matter. Rivian, the diagnostic software is there and available to gain access to, but it's extremely expensive, and it doesn't really make sense at this stage in the game when so few are out there out of warranty. Just doesn't make financial sense. At least for a shop like me, to gain access to that. If you were a specialized shop, maybe doing body work and that kind of thing, doing stuff on them, then it might make more sense. But for a shop like me, unfortunately, I don't have access to that stuff. And then, like I mentioned, when it comes to Teslas, I use their in-house diagnostic software called Toolbox 3. It's actually a service subscription that I've talked about before. It costs about $700 a year to gain access to, but there's also lower tier options that you can get. So you can get a monthly access or even a daily access to the software if you're just looking to do, kind of a one-time repair, either clearing codes, doing diagnostics, programming, anything like that. So that's kind of the options there. So another question that I get is, what are the bread and butter most common repairs that I get here in the shop? And to be honest, I kind of try to vary a little bit of the repairs that I do. I like to keep it interesting and continue to kind of branch out and learn new things. But some of the most common repairs that I get here are large drive unit related repairs. So the Tesla large drive unit is used in the rear wheel drive and performance versions of Model S and Model X, as well as a slightly modified version that's used in the Mercedes B-Class Electric and the Toyota RAV4 EV. Those drive units are super, super prone to coolant intrusion issues from a leaking rotor coolant seal. And that can cause all sorts of problems. Leads to isolation faults. It can damage inverter electronics. It can cause damage to the rotor bearings. And really the key to that particular failure mode is you want to catch it early before it causes catastrophic damage. And a lot of the time what you can do is mitigate that with a rotor coolant delete manifold, and that can basically permanently eliminate that as a failure mode. There's also other common issues that those drive units have. They're prone to developing some bearing and gearbox noise issues, so that's another one kind of to worry about for them. So I do a lot of drive unit rebuilds and rotor coolant deletes on the LDU. Another thing that I do a lot of are battery pack level repairs on legacy Model S and X. More so the S with the older 70 and 85 kilowatt hour packs. They're pretty prone to moisture intrusion issues, which can actually cause damage to battery management boards. Those issues are totally fixable. It's not a cell level failure where you're, seeing self-discharge or anything like that. But it's really just, component level failures to either electronics or wiring within the battery. There are cell level issues that can occur in the packs, where you end up basically developing a weak short within a cell, and it causes parasitic drain on the rest of the cells around it in the brick. And that's a little bit less repairable, at least in terms of the scale of operation that my shop is. There are other shops out there that do higher level repair stuff when it comes to either cell level repairs, and there's some different places out there that are really forging the way ahead and pioneering those types of repairs. But That's getting into really advanced equipment to be able to do that stuff, and it's outside of the scope of what my small shop is capable of. And then, what other common repairs do I see? I see a lot of Nissan Leaf PTC heater failures. So I've actually done more of those than I care to count, to be honest. It's a little bit of a pain to do them, but it is doable, and it's a pretty common failure, actually. And honestly, PTC heater failures are pretty common on lots of different EVs, just because they're a particularly failure-prone sort of component. You see a lot of big temperature swings with heat cycling on them, and that can lead to failures. And then the last question on my list here that I thought would be a good one to close out with is a lot of people ask, what repairs can I do myself? And by that I mean, what repairs can you, the viewer, do yourself? And the answer to that is, it really just depends on what your capabilities are. DIY really just depends on what your level of confidence is in your ability to have the skills and the knowledge to do the repair, and the tools at your disposal to be able to do the repair. So the definition of DIY really depends on the person. Some people don't really feel comfortable doing anything DIY, whether that even be as simple as, changing your gearbox oil or rotating your tires, where other people might feel comfortable, pulling the battery pack out of their car, pulling modules out, and doing repairs like this. It really just depends on your level of ability and what you think that it is that you're able to do. Obviously, anything related to the high voltage system, you want to be cautious and make sure to be safe with what you're doing. High voltage in the battery packs on these cars is certainly deadly, and you could very easily hurt or even kill yourself doing that kind of thing. So the key is just caution, knowing what you're doing, and that's pretty much it. It's not that difficult as long as you just have the right mindset to be able to pursue the repairs in a manner that you're paying attention to what you're doing and keeping safe. But I would say that for the average person, if you are used to working on your internal combustion cars, doing oil changes, changing brakes, rotating tires, you can do all that sort of same stuff on an EV. It's one of those things where it really just depends on what your level of ability is. So I think that pretty much does it for all the questions that I've got here on my list. If you have any other questions that you want answered, make sure to leave them down in the comments section. I try to stay pretty active in the comments on a lot of the videos here, and I try to answer people's questions when I can. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and maybe I'll be able to answer them for you. But that's going to do it for this one. As always, thanks for watching.